Tonight's episode involves the death and mutilation of minors. It also deals with mental health crisis. Listener discretion is advised. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said unto him, Why is thy spirit so sad, that thou eatest no bread? It's probably because he was too busy eating himself.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. Ladies, how y'all feel? Fellas, y'all all right? It is Sunday, May 11th, 2025, and your girl is feeling tired, but I am happy. Happy Mother's Day to all of my beautiful mothers out there, whether you created one, you helped raise one, you stepped up when one wasn't available. Happy Mother's Day to you. Y'all, I am tired. I have spent the last 3 days at this tattoo convention as a vendor selling my books. But your girl is happy nonetheless. I am healthy. I am living. So that is enough for me. My kids celebrated me today. I got some new ink on my arm. Yay me. But yeah, life is great. Again, I apologize about the delay with last week's episode. Trust me, I felt it. My numbers plummeted, and good God, I am not happy about it. Things happen schedule wise and with the guest, and I chose not to record because my mood would kind of reflect how I was feeling in that episode. And well, yeah, I probably should have recorded it, but what's done is done. And I mean, shit happens. So all I can do is push forward and hope that you all keep rocking with me. And as a consolation, y'all know I got a bonus episode for y'all right after this one. Yep, you heard right. There will be 2 episodes uploaded today. I got y'all on the extra episode. Y'all, I was crying so much last week. It didn't make no sense. Like, it was a really rough week. And it kind of, I guess you could say, really made me reflect on some things and reevaluate some things. But after some meditation and recentering, I am back and ready to do this. Oh, and guess what, y'all? It is almost that time. We are just weeks away from the first live show. Saturday, June 14th, 2025. Your girl will be in the building at the Margaritaville, located at 155 Olympic Park Drive in Atlanta, Georgia. There are 8 tickets left, half off. And I got a feeling those are going to be gone soon too, because $50 tickets, oh yeah. You know what? No wonder I sold out the first time. But it's going to be so much fun. The case is a very touchy one, but it's going to be a lot that day. So if you ain't got your ticket, what's wrong with you? You got to go get it now. Now, I'm not going to hold y'all all day because, I know y'all been waiting to get to this week's case for like the last couple of weeks. So, y'all, this case was, whew, baby, this was one for the books. I mean, like, when I started researching it, I was like, what the fuck? Because this was a whole new level of crazy. So I really hope y'all got y'all drinks ready. What y'all sipping on tonight? Myself, I'm sipping on some vodka, the bubblegum flavored. And it tastes like cotton candy to me a little bit, but I like it. Now the bonus episode though, oh, I think I'm gonna have to switch to some tequila for that one. Some Lunazol, baby, because ooh, that one is hilarious. But yeah, I got my drinks and I got my snacks, something simple, some popcorn and red hots. Now, y'all, one of the listeners sent red hots to my PO box. Y'all, I hollered like, but I'm grateful nonetheless. But like when I opened my PO box and I saw red hots, and she was just like from one of the mobbers, I busted out laughing. I made sure that it came in a closed container, of course, and that nothing had happened to it because folks, it's crazy nowadays. I'm just saying. So thank you nonetheless for that. All right, y'all. Let's buckle up and get ready to ride. We gonna take it back to 2004 and ride out to Sherman, Texas. Let's get into it, baby. Y'all ready? Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it. This week's case involves Leah Hughes, victim, Andre Boren Jr., victim and Andre's son, Laura Boran Thomas, victim and Andre's wife, and the infamous murderer of the week, Andre Thomas. Andre Lee Thomas was born March 17th, 1983, to Rochelle and Danny Thomas in Muskegon County, Oklahoma. Now, he came from a very big family because he had five brothers along with himself. And together, when he was just a young boy, they all moved to Sherman, Texas, which is like about maybe 60 miles or so from Dallas, Texas. Growing up, Andre really had to deal with some difficulties. His mother, Rochelle, was battling a lot of different things. She had been sexually assaulted when Andre was a kid and had been abused too. And because of it, it led to like a life of alcoholism and depression. And, she couldn't really be the best mother that she wanted to be for her kids. And as they got older, the family really struggled because, there would be times where they had no electricity or no running water. So they couldn't, bathe and take care of themselves or provide the basic essentials that most families would have. And the family, I guess, tried to survive the best that they could. But given his environment, Andre was subjected to violence and abuse at an early age. Like he had several members of his family that were dealing with alcoholism, depression, substance abuse, anything that you could think of, they dealt with it. But still, even with all of that, he tried to have somewhat of a normal childhood. He was described as very inquisitive and very smart. And, even though his family was having issues with substance abuse and everything, he would go to church on the regular. Like that was his constant, that was his relief. And his family was Baptist, so they went to a Baptist church in Sherman, Texas. And one of Andre's favorite things to do was going to Sunday school. Now, one of his Sunday school teachers talked about how he was so smart and respectful, and he would like answer the question before she could finish getting the question out. We call them kiss asses, but if that's how you want to make it seem cool. All right, you got it. But Andre was very smart to the point that he was in the gifted program at school. And he was well known for, his love of cars, as far as like taking them apart and reassembling them, and then drawing like futuristic cars and whatnot on papers. Like he sounds like he was the all around student. Well, initially. See, the good boy thing didn't really last too long because when Andre turned about 10 years old, he started to kind of shift his behavior a bit. Now, of course, kids are going to act up, but this was more than just acting up. Like his behavior was a little bit more than the norm. For example, in school, he would tell his classmates that there were angels and demons arguing in his head. Okay. So, y'all remember the video game Mortal Kombat? Like, I know I used to play it on like Super Nintendo and all of that. Y'all, tell me why Andre used to tell his classmates that he was the character Raiden. Like, bullshit you not. He thought he was Raiden on some finish him, like, fatality. Like, he was dead ass serious. And, of course, his classmates is just like, man, this nigga playing, he just being goofy. But he was like, no, I'm for real. I'm Raiden. And that was just the tip of the iceberg with him. Like, even at 10 years old, he fell into the habits that, his family started to exhibit. He was drinking alcohol, he was smoking weed, all kind of stuff that might attribute to why he thought he was Raiden. I'm just saying. But, Andre thought he was supposed to be doing this stuff, like, he felt like it was a way to, I guess, quiet the voices in his head, but ultimately, he got in trouble to the point that the law got involved, and they ended up putting him on probation by the time he was, like, 12 years old. And it only escalated because after being on probation, Andre was just like, "Listen, I can't do this no more. I'm tired of this. I don't wanna be here." And so Andre slit his wrist trying to kill himself. Now, it wasn't successful the first time, and so he goes again and tries to kill himself by slitting his wrist once more. And once again, he wasn't successful, but this did warrant the attention of law enforcement. And so, they were like, "Okay, we gotta get him some help." And the older that he got, he just kept getting into trouble and kept getting into trouble. By the time he was 15, he had been arrested so many times, like, it didn't make no sense. He had gotten arrested for stealing cars, possession, fights. It got to the point that whenever he would get in trouble, he was always on suicide watch because he would talk about how he wanted to kill himself every single time he got in trouble. And like I said, he did try. In addition to the suicide attempts where he slit his wrist, he dealt with a lot of other criminal activity. He had been arrested multiple times by the time he was 15 years old, grand theft, possession, all of that. He had to go to juvenile detention center because of his behavior. And a few times he had been placed on suicide watch because his behavior was so erratic. Now, the weird thing is, though, they didn't really give him any type of medical treatment. They just put him on watch. So it's kind of like, all right, you diagnose him, but you don't want to treat him. And that just, it didn't really add up to me. But, I guess maybe that's how they felt they had to handle it. So Andre's life, for lack of better words, was just all over the place. He was getting into a lot of trouble, everything. But he did have one thing in his life that was good for him. And to him, it was his girlfriend, Laura Boren. Laura Christine Baran was born November 7th, 1983, to Paul and Sherry Boren in Sherman, Texas. It's either Baran or Boren, but I'm going to say Boren. She had grown up in Texas pretty much her whole life. Now, Laura is from the mountains of Caucasus, meaning that she is a white woman. You got to say it. You got to say that shit like Calvin Candy and Django. White woman. But, that didn't mean nothing to Andre. When he saw her, he decided, this is who I want. And so he introduced himself to her and he kicks his little game, even though he had this curly hair that had him looking like Bird and the Midnight Falcons from the Five Heartbeats. But he and Laura started seeing each other. They were teenagers, just learning what fucking was, but they found out quick what fucking was because before Andre knew it, he had gotten Laura pregnant. She was 15 years old and about to be a baby mama. And being a teenage dad wasn't necessarily something on his to do list, but, he had to get himself ready. And on August 31st, 1999, Laura gives birth to their son, Andre Lee Boren. Now, they called him Andre Jr., even though the baby carried her last name. And with his newfound responsibilities, Andre's thinking, all right, I got to make some money. I got to take care of my family. So he drops out of the ninth grade and he gets a high school equivalency diploma, which is basically, like a GED, and he starts working. And homeboy got a lot of jobs. He's doing whatever he can to make money. And when he turns 18, on his 18th birthday, in fact, he tells Laura, baby, I want to make you an honest woman. I want to get married. Now, Laura's only 17, so she had to get her parents' permission. But on March 17th, 2001, he and Laura say, I do. Now, her and Chadwick Noseman over here done tied the knot. I'm sorry. If y'all saw his picture, you'd see why I said that. But anyway, Andre is still stacking his money and trying to figure things out. He's tied the knot. Surprisingly, his mother tells him, listen, if you need to, y'all two can stay with me for a little bit until you get yourselves together now, baby. But when I say a little bit, she meant a little bit because literally 2 weeks after they got married and moved in with his mama, baby, it got to be too much for Rochelle because mama was like, she done reached her breaking point. She changed her mind so fast about them being in her house. Oh no, y'all asses got to go. Pack your shit and get the hell up out of here. And rightfully so. Andre, he's feeling defeated. He's got this new wife and an 8-month old baby, and now his mama's putting him out. Like, what's he gonna do? And so Laura tells Andre, "Baby, don't worry, we can move in with my parents." But her parents wasn't having it either. Even though they were married and they did have a family, Paul and his wife Sherry, they laid down the law. "Laura, darling, you and that baby can stay here, but Andre's gonna have to figure something out." And Andre is like, "Wow, that's real fucked up, yo." And he didn't have a lot of choices, so he went to go live with one of his brothers while Laura and Andre Jr. moved in with her parents. And Laura, she's doing everything she can to take care of her son, and Andre's trying to do what he can financially. But, he's living with his brother, and she's there with her parents. Plus, they're still very much teenagers. And the two of them, they're still trying to figure things out. They aren't some, old married couple. They don't have savings or anything. So it wasn't surprising that not even 4 months after they got married, they ended up separating. Laura, well, she went on to meet someone new, Bryant Hughes. She never actually divorces Andre, but she lets it be known to him that she has somebody else when she started dating Bryant. Meanwhile, Andre, he's working and, doing his thing, but Laura leaving him isn't necessarily helping his mental, and he starts having episodes of psychosis. So Laura, she's happy with her new man. So happy that in fact she gives birth to another child that she has for Bryant. This time she has a daughter born February 25th, 2003, named Leah Marie Hughes. And she and Bryant move and get a place together not too far from her parents' house. And of course, Andre is devastated by this. Like 18 years old, his marriage has failed. He's now a single daddy struggling to survive and barely taking care of his kid. And to make matters worse, he's having more thoughts of delusions and suicide. And, he started down this deep spiral. He's trying to fight his thoughts, but delusions of grandeur are kicking in big time. Now, we all know, those that are religious anyway, we all know that the book of Revelations in the Bible talks about the end of time and how, no man knows the day nor the hour, right? Well, apparently, Andre thought he did. See, he became really obsessed over these apocalyptic concepts that he felt was in the book of Revelations. And the more that he thought about it and the more that he read it, the more that, he starts trying to emulate his own version of it. And it got to the point that his job was like, "Yeah, we don't need that shit here. We just need you to do what you came here to do your job. If you can't do that, we got to let you go." But Andre didn't care. He wanted to know what was going to happen. He wanted them to know what was going to happen. He was obsessed with the book of Revelations. He just kept spiraling. And remember, he's living with his brother, right? So his brother is telling him, like, "Yo, bro, you gotta chill, Dre. Like you tripping. You can't be having that crazy shit up in here. You gotta chill on that." And I get it, that's his crib. If anything, y'all supposed to be living together and peacefully coexisting. But Andre didn't like how his brother came at him. "You gonna check me over how I need to act because I'm being religious? I'm reading the Bible? Oh, okay." So one day, Andre just up and stabs his brother. No warning, no nothing. Luckily, his brother didn't die, but it messed with him mentally and he ended up being committed for psychiatric treatment. Like, clearly, this is some genetic shit. But, like, I mean, shit, if my brother tried to kill me, I would be messed up too. Like, I might need to, sit on the couch or two. I'm just saying. But now, with his brother being in the mental institution, Andre has to figure out how to take care of everything financially by himself. And he's not making any money because he's not working like that. And now, it's affecting his household because he done stabbed his brother and his brother gone. He can't even afford to keep the power on. And when his baby mama Laura hears about this, she's telling him, "Andre, I can't have my baby over there if you don't have electricity. He is a toddler. You got to have power." And that's facts. But instead of understanding, Andre is seeing this as disrespectful because he wants to be with his son. He wants to see his son. And Laura, she's off living the good life with her and her man, and they have their family, but she's trying to keep him from his. To him, this is just wrong. It's betrayal. He's thinking to himself, How you just gonna keep me from my kid? How you just gonna move on like we wasn't just together?" This was a lot for Andre. If he hadn't already, he definitely started seeing Laura differently. He started seeing his son differently, in fact. So he's still reading the Bible and he starts reading the Bible more and more. And Laura is reminding him a lot of Jezebel. She was nothing more than a harlot, or in today's time, a hoe, a 304. Okay. And her latest stunt had pissed him off something bad with her keeping Andre Jr. from him. Not to mention she had left him and moved on to another man and started a whole new family. She was just not really his best. She was not his favorite person in that moment. And Andre Jr., his son, he was what he considered the antichrist, which is a shame because you have a beautiful child and you are having these psychotic thoughts about your own blood, like a child that was barely 4 years old. And to make matters worse, because he was going through one of his psychotic episodes, he got to the point that like any and everything was questionable to him. At one point, he was relying, y'all. I promise you, when I saw this shit, I was like, "What? What?" Yeah, he was relying on money to guide him, like literally relying on money to guide him in his life because he felt like there were messages in the images on the dollar bill, not the $5 bill, mind you, not the $10 bill, not the 20, but the dollar bill. So that tells you that his ass was struggling financially because he was relying on the dollar bill. Okay. This is what I mean by some crazy shit. You thinking that the prince on the dollar bill is telling you how to live your life? Yeah, that's too much. Then on top of that, he's going through moments of deja vu. And when it all got to be too much, he would just say, you know what? I don't want to do this no more. He would literally get duct tape and put it over his mouth and refuse to talk to anybody. I mean, he mainly did this around his family, but I mean, I don't want to talk to your batshit crazy ass either. So, do you? But that's typical behavior for him, I guess. Now, we're going to fast forward a bit to the spring of 2004. Laura and Bryant, they're still in their relationship and they've moved in together and they're happy and raising Leah and Andre Jr. Andre isn't getting much time with his son because he's still struggling to pay bills and basically, have the bare necessities to survive. So naturally, Laura is keeping Andre from him. And Andre's turning more to alcohol and becoming a drunk, which is affecting his psychological disorders. And in turn, he takes it up a notch and decides to start using drugs. So he started doing what has become very popular now, which is cold medicine. Now we refer to it as lean or, whatever, where you mix the cold medicine and like Sprite or something like that. I haven't done it, just saying. So he starts doing lean and his mind is just getting worse and worse. That mental is just fucking up. He's having all of these crazy thoughts. I don't want to be here no more. I don't want to do this no more. I'm tired of living. And on March 5th, 2004, he has one of his homeboys take him to go to a mental health clinic. And when they get there, Andre just has an outburst. I need to talk to somebody now. I just want to die. Like, I can't stand the sound of my own voice. Shoot me, please. And the employees, they're trying to calm him down. Like, Mr. Thomas, we can't do that. We can't shoot you. We're trying to help you, but not that way. And he tells them, "No, you need to shoot me. I need to talk to somebody. If I don't talk to somebody about what's going on right now, Imma jump in front of a bus." And so they hear this and they sit down and they talk to him to try to figure out what the hell is going on with him. And all the while they're doing that, they're trying to get him committed. So, they tell him that, "Hey, you need to go to the emergency room for this." But that's not something he wants to hear. So they contact law enforcement to see if they can get him some additional help. And they tell the cops, "Hey, we need to get a detention order for the emergency room." Now, for those that don't know, a detention order is basically where they have a patient committed. It's like an involuntary commitment or hospitalization or whatever, where they deem a person mentally ill. But Andre wasn't trying to hear that. So, of course, he didn't go. He gets up and leaves. He runs off. Big surprise. But on March 26th, 2004, about 3 weeks later, he does end up going to the emergency room at Texoma Medical Center in Denison, Texas. Why? Well, it was because he stabbed himself in the chest in one of his so called suicide attempts. And when the nurses ask him what happened, he tells them, "Listen, I was trying to cross over into heaven." Like, I'm almost certain that the Bible says that suicide is a sin, but okay. They now have Andre in the hospital, but it turns out that the stab wounds themselves weren't really life threatening. So now he's in a situation where the hospital is saying, okay, this motherfucker gonna keep trying to take himself up out of here. So we need to get him some type of medical help. So they call the on call doctor, Dr. William Bowen, and they fill him in on what's going on. And he decided that he was going to interview Andre himself and see exactly what was, happening. Oddly enough, Andre's initial complaint wasn't that he stabbed himself, but that he had depression and was having suicidal thoughts and ideations. And after the interview, Dr. Bowen felt like Andre was stable, but he had just had, major depression and psychosis, which is what caused him to be cutting himself, trying to take himself up out of there. So Dr. Bowen started trying to arrange psychiatric treatment for Andre. But while they were working on that, I guess Andre realized that they were trying to have his ass locked up. So he just walks out of the hospital room. And the hospital, of course, notifies Denison Police Department when they see that he's gone. They're like, hey, we got a situation. Some guy named Andre Thomas, he might be dangerous. He just left the hospital. We don't have a way of reaching him because we don't have a phone number for him. And y'all remember his stuff is cut off. Now, I will say it was odd to me that they couldn't locate him because Andre walked home from the hospital to his house, but for some reason they couldn't find him. So that same evening around 7 o'clock, Andre starts up with his antics again. He's pacing and he's just like, I want to see my kid. So he goes over to Laura and Brian's home apartment, and Brian is home. And he just starts going off. I want to see my son. I want to see my son. And he's just rambling. And Brian actually calms him down, and they're having a conversation until like a little after midnight. And Brian then takes Andre home. That's love because your new man is taking your old man home. Like, But Bryant takes Andre home, and I guess he thought everything was okay. But sadly, it was not. Because the next morning, on March 27th, 2004, around maybe 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, Bryant is getting ready to go to work. As he's leaving, he sees Andre walking in the direction of his house. So he calls Laura's father, Paul, and he tells him, hey, Andre's headed over here. I don't know what he's up to, but you may need to go check on him. I got to go to work. And Paul says, okay, no problem. Meanwhile, Andre's still making his way to the apartment. He goes upstairs to the third floor where Laura lives with her man and her kids, and he just, boom, kicks in the door. Laura hears it and she jumps up. Her kids are in the next room asleep, 4-year-old Andre Jr. and her 13-month-old daughter, Leah. Laura sees him and she's scared as hell. She's like, Andre, what are you doing? And before she knows it, he just grabs her and he stabs her. He's stabbing her over and over. And he cuts her so hard that he cuts open her chest. And he's thinking to himself, I'm going to pull out her heart. I'm going to cut her out. I'm going to cut her heart out the way she cut mine. But in all actuality, he pulled out a portion of her lung. Now, once he knew that she was dead, he got up and he grabbed another knife. Then he walked to the bedroom where his 4-year-old son, Andre Jr., and her 1-year-old daughter were sleeping. He takes the knife to Andre Jr. first, stabbing, stabbing. Then he drops it, grabs another knife, and he stabs Leah, cutting her heart out as he had done Laura and Andre Jr. And once he knows that they're all dead, he starts heading towards the living room where Laura's body is still laying on the floor. He takes another knife and he stabs himself in the chest 3 times. He lays next to her and he's thinking, this is how I'm going to go out. And he's actually thinking that he's going to die. But he didn't do a good job stabbing himself, or maybe it was God saying, nah, you're going to stick around and suffer. Whatever the reason, he did not die. So once he realized that he was just in pain and wasn't actually dying, he picks the hearts up that he cut out, puts them in his pockets, and walks back to his house. And then he takes all the organs in a bag and throws it in the trash. What the entire fuck? Now remember, Bryant called Paul, who is on the way to Laura's house. So Andre calls Laura's parents, but he doesn't get a response because remember, Paul is on the way there. So instead of just like hanging up, he actually leaves a voicemail and he says, Sherry, this is Andre. I need y'all's help. Something bad is happening to me and it keeps happening and I don't know what's going on. I need some help. I think I'm in hell. I need help. Somebody needs to come and help me. I need help. I'm desperate. I'm afraid to go to sleep. So when you get this message, come by the house, please. Hello? This motherfucker is still bleeding through all of this, y'all. And while he's leaving that voicemail, Paul is getting over to Laura's house. When he does get there, instantly he knows something is up because the door has been kicked in. So he goes inside and he sees the most horrific scene ever. His daughter is laying there on the ground with her chest cut open and her lungs are halfway on the floor. And he's shook. This is my daughter. This is my baby. All of these thoughts are running through his mind. And then he remembers his grandkids. So he leaves his daughter's lifeless body and runs through the barrage of toys and everything. And when he gets into their room, he sees them lying in their beds. Now, at first glance, he thinks that they're sleeping. But the closer that he gets, the more he realizes they ain't asleep. They're dead. He sees that each of them have been stabbed multiple times and their hearts have been cut out. And he breaks all the way down. Who would do such a thing? Who would kill innocent babies? He already has his answer. Andre. He calls 911 and he tells the dispatcher, "Help me. I just came in and found my daughter and my grandkids dead. I know who killed them. It was my daughter's ex husband. It was Andre. Andre Thomas did this." And he really didn't have to worry about the cops going to look for Andre because Andre actually turned himself into the police department. He went to the Sherman Police Department and he tells the officers, "I want to turn myself in for murder." And the cops asked him who he murdered, and he said, "I murdered my ex wife, I murdered my son, and I murdered her daughter." And they ask him, "Well, why did you do that?" And he tells them, "God wanted me to kill them. I killed each of them with a separate knife because there were demons inside of them. I couldn't use the same knife. I had to use different knives because if I use the same knife and their blood mixed, then the demons might survive." Now remember, he's also bleeding because he stabbed himself 3 times in the chest. And so the cops damn sure see this shit. So they take Balthazar's looking ass to the hospital and he has surgery on his chest. And they also place him under arrest. Now, after his surgery, Andre's taken to the jail and he is waiting to have his trial. Laura and her 2 children are laid to rest in Luella, Texas. And there was a beautiful headstone that was made for the 3 of them, where, of course, she was watching over them that her parents had made for her and the kids. Now, at this point, it's like April 1st or 2nd of 2004, and Andre's sitting in his cell and he's reading the Bible. I'm sorry, but this is one of the first times where I'm sitting back thinking, like, maybe people shouldn't read the Bible. Or at least not him, because you are literally taking what it says and twisting it in such a devious and sadistic way. But I digress. I'll get into that later on in Fair or Foul. So he's sitting there reading the Bible and he's reading the book of Matthews. Now, there's this one particular chapter in Matthews 5 and 29 where it says, "If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out." And well, Andre took that shit to heart. So what does he do? He gouges one of his eyes out right there in the cell. And then he quotes Mark 9 and 47 and says, "If your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. It's better to enter the kingdom of God with one eye than to have two eyes and be thrown in hell." And this is where I start to think,
Now you see something. Now you see now. You done fucked up, you know that, don't you?
"'Cause, sir, what the hell? You wanna be walking around here looking like a pirate? Like, you don't think they've caught on to what you doing by now? Like, they not stupid, fam. They see you. You literally do dumb shit every time you get in trouble." And his latest stunt put the entire jail on alert. Like, I mean, after all, this man did just gouge his own eye out. Like, what the fuck? So they bring in a psychologist and they interview Andre to see if he's competent enough to stand trial because who the fuck takes out their own eyeball? Andre does, of course. Why? To avoid trial. So they do the exam and they determine that he has schizophrenia. And the psychiatrists are saying, "Listen, we don't think he's competent enough to stand trial right now. This dude needs some serious help." So they sent him to the North Texas State Hospital mid June 2004. Now, he was in there for a good little minute, like a little over a month and a half, and he dealt with this psychiatrist named Joseph Black. Joseph kept a very detailed eye on him because he knew that Andre was on that bullshit and he monitored his ass. So they started giving Andre meds to help him function better. And his behavior improved just like Joseph thought it would. So Joseph writes back to the judge and he tells him, "Hey, we've got him in a drug induced psychosis. This will make him competent enough to stand trial. Don't believe him if he tries to say that he's more crazier than he actually is. He's going to do things like self harm or other aberrant behavior." Baby, that was all the judge needed to hear. That ass was going to trial. Okay. Now, even though the trial hadn't started yet, Andre was appointed an attorney, RJ Hagood. Now, RJ's ass should have objected to the doctor making him competent. Like the doctor blatantly told the judge, "Hey, he's going to try to make himself be more crazy than he is. He's going to try to harm himself." Yeah, that means he's still dealing with some type of psychosis, dummy. That means his ass is not all the way there. If anything, he needs to stay in the mental institution. But the court takes the doctor's suggestion and they get ready for trial. On February 15th, 2005, Andre's trial gets underway. He has his defense attorney, RJ Hagood. Now, the weird thing is, even though he clearly killed three people, he was only tried for Leah's death, which is Laura's daughter. And of course, when I did some digging, I found out the jury he had was all white. Not a drop of black anywhere, not a speckle. I mean, for him to not be tried for the death of his own son, or even Laura for that matter, was a little surprising considering that she was a white woman, which was a bit odd to me. And another thing that stood out is that during jury selection, three of the jurors that actually got selected and one of the alternates all said that they were opposed to interracial dating or breeding. Yes, the word breeding was used. I bullshit you not. One of them went as far as saying, "I don't believe God intended for this. We should stay within our bloodline." And the prosecution was just like, "Perfect. You'll be a great juror." To which I give a hearty
Middle finger to my haters. Are you bitch jealous? Fuck y'all. Been
first of all, what you not about to do is say that we in here breeding. And secondly, you not gonna sit up here and say that we gotta stay within our own bloodline. Bruh, if we did that, half of us wouldn't be on this planet now. Okay, let's keep it a band because our bloodline was all the way in fucking Africa, minding our black ass business when y'all brought our asses over here and started to mingle them bloodlines. But I'm just saying. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. All right. Now, I'm not gonna lie. There was one part of the trial that had me laughing my ass off, and I probably shouldn't have, but to just envision it is comedy, okay? So, during the trial, they're bringing up witnesses to give testimonials and all of that. Y'all, Andre is sitting there with his one eyeball, and he's kind of like in a catatonic state, but it's what he's doing that made me giggle just a little bit. This man was popping Skittles during the testimony like they were just going out of style. Like, just imagine sitting there popping Skittles like they sunflower seeds while your fate is being decided. First of all, who the fuck brought you Skittles? Like, who thought that was a good idea? Now, of course, with all of this, his attorneys were telling the jury, clearly you can see that he's insane and we need to plead the insanity defense. Maybe that's why they gave him the Skittles to make him look crazier. I don't know. But the prosecution is coming down on that ass hard. They're just like, Andre's mental illness is because of his drug use. That's why he pulled out his eyeball. It was an impulse act rather than insanity. Now, Andre's attorney felt like they could use the insanity defense, but ultimately, the judge thought otherwise. I mean, did you really expect anything different in the state of Texas? Hell, just look at the jury. They decided his fate before the trial even started. So on March 11th, 2005, the Grayson County Courthouse finds that Andre Lee Thomas is guilty of capital murder for Leah Hughes, and he receives the death sentence. He was sent to the Polinsky Unit, which is a part of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice in Livingston, Texas. And once he's taken to the prison, he's put in Gen Pop with everybody else, and he's in the unit where they house all the other death row inmates. The entire time, he's still hearing these voices in his head, and he's telling people that he's seeing six. he's telling people he's telling people that he's seeing 6-inch tall demons coming out of the prison walls, and that they're playing music from the band Queen. Like, dude is off his rocker. 6-inch tall demons. I cannot. Y'all, I am weak. But hey, if he thought that's what he saw, cool. So while he was in prison, Laura's father, Paul, and her boyfriend, Bryant, decided to file a lawsuit against Texoma Medical Center. Now, remember how I told you guys that Andre had gone into the emergency room when he had cut himself in the chest the first time and how it was like non serious and all of that? Well, remember, Dr. Bowen was trying to get him help. But because he walked out of the hospital and they didn't actually get him the help that he needed, Paul and Bryant felt like that was a part of the reason why Andre was able to kill Laura and her kids. And because of that, Paul and Bryant sued the hospital for negligence. They alleged that Texoma failed to exercise the care of an ordinary prudent hospital in Andre's treatment. Laura's mother, Sherry, she actually spoke about it and she said, when you walk into a hospital or an ER and you tell someone that you feel like you're going to do harm to yourself or someone else, I mean, I think it's negligent for them to just leave him by himself like that. I mean, she ain't wrong. He should have had someone watching him at all times. Like, people aren't necessarily always in their best mental health, and you should probably have somebody watching you. But the argument there with the hospital is that doctors couldn't really foresee what Andre was going to do. They weren't aware, they couldn't read his mind. And so ultimately, the hospital had the courts on their side because the courts rejected the lawsuit that Paul and Bryant filed, stating that the hospital had no legal authority to hold Andre there. Now, here's the thing. While this is going on, Andre is still locked up in the prison, of course, and he decides that he doesn't want to live anymore. Surprise, surprise. And in July 2008, he decides that he's going to once again try to kill himself. I swear this dude is on some little engine that could type shit. Like, damn, you suck at trying to kill yourself, bruh, for real. I'm sorry, that sounds wrong. But this time he cuts the front of his neck with a sharp object. But as it turns out, he ends up just giving himself a little flesh wound and had to get 8 stitches. And as expected, his attorneys have filed an appeal regarding the death sentence that he received, stating that he was insane at the time that he committed the murders. But in October 2008, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals disagreed with that and they upheld the conviction. Judge Kathy Cochran spoke on it, stating, although reasonable people might well differ on the questions of whether this applicant was saying at the time he committed those murders or competent at the time he was tried, those issues were appropriately addressed by the defense, the prosecution, trial judge, and the jury during the trial. This is a sad case. The applicant is clearly crazy, but he is also sane under Texas law. And after receiving such devastating news and learning that his appeal had been denied, Andre is in his jail cell just devastated and he decides that he needs to go do something drastic. So on December 9th, 2008, he gouges out his left eye and he eats it. Dude, what the fuck? Just why? What was the reason?
What's the reason?
You nasty son of a bitch. How you just like you popping eyeballs in your mouth like they bonbons. What the hell? Why would you do something like that? Like just for what reason? Now you went from looking like you went from Mario Winans to the mummy. What the fuck? Like the prison is just confused. And Andre is serious about his shit. Like when they questioned him on why he did it, he says, "Cause I ain't want the federal government to read my thoughts." Like, how is he still functioning at this point? So they take him to a hospital in Tyler, Texas. And after he's discharged, now fully blind because he's already gouged out another eye, he gets transferred to the Jester 4 unit, which is a specific unit that houses Texas prisoners that have mental health issues. Like, I really feel like they probably should have sent his ass there a long time ago to avoid him gouging out another eye. But yeah. So he's carted off to Richmond, Texas, and his attorneys are like, finally, at least now he's getting the care that he deserves. And yeah, all it took was him gouging out both of his eyes. But Andre wasn't done fighting just yet. So it took some years, but in 2020, he decided to file another appeal. And this time he had attorney Catherine Carroll. Now, her argument was that his original attorneys were ineffective as far as the representation. She is spot on with that. They failed to object to the selection of the three jurors that had a bias against interracial marriage, which is a very strong argument. It was blatant bias, so she's not wrong on that. She also said that the attorneys didn't present an accurate account of Andre's psychiatric problems. They didn't request a competency hearing, and they actually presented a psychiatrist as an expert witness, but the psychiatrist didn't have expert in cases where the mental health was drug induced. And these were all very strong arguments. But in April 2021, about a year later, once again, Andre's appeal was denied and the original conviction was upheld. So another year goes by, and on October 11th, 2022, Andre decides to petition for a writ of certiorari. I may not have said that word right, but certiorari. Yeah. He advised that having jurors that opposed to interracial marriage violated his 6th and 14th Amendment rights. Again, he's not wrong. And it also violates his right to a trial by an impartial jury. Again, not wrong. After the last appeal was denied, the courts decided on November 11th, 2022, that they were going to go ahead and schedule an execution for Andre and just, fuck everything that he had been requesting. So his execution was scheduled for April 5th, 2023. But then people started coming forward in support of Andre. The Texas Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty and the Texas chapter of the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, they came forward and they pleaded with Governor Greg Abbott and the Texas Board of Pardons and Parole to do everything in their power to stop the execution, including issuing a stay and seeking a path to clemency. Now, that right there is some crazy shit because this man killed three people, cut their hearts out, and then gouged his own eyes out. But go off. Okay. Now, understand this. In Texas, the governor does have some power, but it is very limited power nonetheless. But, the groups step in and they ask people to sign a petition to stop the execution. The clemency application says, for the past 15 years, Andre Thomas has resided at the Wayne Scott Unit, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice's psychiatric facility, where the most mentally ill Texas prisoners are housed. He suffers from schizophrenia and permanently blinded himself by gouging out both of his eyes on separate occasions. These were acts of permanent self mutilation that only the most mentally ill person could ever undertake. Over the course of his life, Mr. Thomas sought treatment for the symptoms of his severe mental illness, but no one responded to his increasingly desperate pleas for help. Executing Andre Thomas would be a grotesque act, devoid of any of the accepted rationales for the death penalty. Certainly, carrying out his death sentence is not necessary to keep Texans safe. If his sentence is commuted, he will never get out of prison. Instead, the image of this eyeless, psychotic man being guided to the gurney would be a shameful spectacle, an unconscionable use of the ultimate governmental power. Texas' aggressive execution schedule marks it as an outlier in its use of the death penalty, while the majority of other states are on a downward trend of executions. In the last 4 years, Texas has been one of only a handful of states that have carried out death sentences, and it continues to do so, targeting the poor, the mentally ill, and people of color. Please sign the petition asking Governor Abbott and the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles to do everything within their power to stop this execution, including issuing a stay and seeking a path to clemency in the case. Y'all already know how I'm about to come for fair or foul. I'm about to bake this burnt, possessed, cabbage patch doll looking ass. But to date, Andre is still on death row at the Wayne Scott unit in Richmond, Texas. He is currently 42 years old and still waiting to get an execution date. He has filed so many appeals and motions over the last couple of years, as recent as October 11th, 2022. He does have a new attorney, Maury Amanda Levin, out of Philadelphia, and they're filing motions just about every week or so. Now, okay, I'm gonna keep it a band with y'all. What really bugs me is the amount of articles that I saw on him and the lack of articles that I saw on the wife and the children that he killed. Now, understandably, he is a mental health patient. And there are some areas that were mentioned that, needed to be brought to light. For example, there was an article written by Brandy Grissom where she discusses the gaps in the mental health code. part of the reason why this occurred is because Andre was allowed to just walk about that hospital. That was part of the reason why Laura and her children were killed. And hospitals don't have authority to detain people in mental crisis who voluntarily entered their facilities. And so advocates for mental health are saying, at least in Texas, they're saying that this is one of the many holes in the state of Texas and it hasn't been looked at in over 30 years. And at the time of the murder, it hadn't been revised since 1985. And the mental health system has changed drastically since then, y'all. Even some of the police officers with the Houston Police Department said, "Hey, if we get authority to medical staff and give them the authority to retain people or restrain people, it could help us officers because we wouldn't have to respond to an already volatile situation." Think about it. Some situations have turned very negative very quickly when a person that is in mental distress sees a cop coming into the room. But then again, at the same time, you also have to consider that if you do restrain a patient that's going through a mental health crisis and you keep them from leaving, you could face legal issues because of the fact that they want to leave. But I mean, hell, you could also face legal issues if they do leave because look at what Andre did. Now, there were other articles that focused on his mental health, such as, the lack of services that are provided for the youth and how to transition from, insane asylum to jail cells. And like I said, he's still waiting for an execution date because the Supreme Court has prohibited the death penalty for the intellectually disabled, but not for people with serious mental illness. And because Andre was considered competent to stand trial, that's where that gray area is that they're trying to figure out. Now, his new attorney, Attorney Levin, has gotten a lot of people together. Honestly, she recently told the media, in an interview, we're confident that when we present the evidence of Mr. Thomas's incompetence, the court will agree that executing him would violate the Constitution. Guiding this blind psychotic man to the gurney for execution offends our sense of humanity and serves no legitimate purpose. And a lot of people agree because more than 100 different pastors and faith leaders and all of that have signed this petition and asked Governor Greg Abbott to stop the execution. But the district attorney's office, oh, they standing 10 toes down. Hey, y'all don't know everything pertaining to this case. I can tell y'all now. Y'all only know a part of the truth. You don't know the whole deal. None of these people know anything about the case. They're parroting what the defense has told them. All I'm thinking is this is the state of Texas. They got over 199 inmates on death row, and only 3 of them have been granted clemency. What the hell make you think Andre's blind, weird looking ass is going to be one of them? Ciao, bye. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Andre Thomas, the blind butcher. And now it is time for Fair or Foul, where we look at the justice system to determine if the sentencing that was given is indeed fair or if it's just some bullshit that's going to have us sitting back saying, what the fuck? The death penalty that he received, completely fair. Like, enough said, just completely fair. This man killed 3 people. Yes, there is a history of mental illness. Yes, there is psychotic episodes. But there's also right from wrong. This man knew what he was doing. He went into that hospital stating that he wanted to get help. But yet, you walk yourself up out of there and you lucky that you were only charged for 1 death, which in itself is fucking insane. Like, that's what I'm questioning, the justice system, because how the hell do you not charge for this mummified in the face looking fool for Andre Jr.'s death or for Laura's death? You only charge him for the baby girl's death. And hell, Laura was white. So what the hell? It was too many areas where they fucked up. For one, the jury. You bring in jurors that are known to be biased and state that they don't agree with biracial marriage, and you let them sit on the jury. It shouldn't have even, it should have been a mistrial right then and there. It should have never got to the point that they were able to come in and be a juror. You got this dude that is blatantly killed his wife and kids because he felt like she was Jezebel. It screams medical attention is needed. There were too many instances where everybody failed. The system failed him. The criminal justice system failed him. The medical system failed him. This boy has been having psychotic episodes since he was 10 years old. This motherfucker thought that he was hearing music from the band Queen. What the fuck? He thought that money was giving him messages about life. He was bold enough to gouge out one of his eyes and then later gouged out another eye and ate it. This motherfucker has tried to kill himself multiple times. I think I mentioned at least 6 in this episode that I could find. Bad enough that he was walking around here looking like Fetty Wap. Then he fucked around and decided that he want to look like the damn mummy. To eat your own eyeball because you don't want the government listening to your thoughts. He is showing y'all that he's crazy, but you leaving him in Gen Pop. The fuck? And then after he does all of that, then you decide to say, oh, hey, let's go ahead and put him in a mental facility. Like, quite frankly, he should have been executed a long time ago. Yes, I have sympathy for someone that deals with mental illness, and I do believe that they should get help. But I also feel like he was playing the fucking system. Because anytime there was a situation where he was acting up, it was, oh, I need help. But at no other time did you just say, oh, I need help when things are good. You only did it when you fucked up. You were doing a bunch of weird ass shit. And so I feel like he knew what he was doing. He knew the difference between right and wrong. He should have been executed a long time ago. Like fuck all of that old mental health illness and all of that. I applaud those. Let me clarify. I applaud those that actually get the help for their mental health and don't use it as an excuse. Okay? He needs to get that good old $42 cocktail medical, that medical cocktail ASAP, okay? Or hell, if you want to go old school, stone him. If you want to get militant about it, shoot his ass the fuck up by firing squad. Who cares? But he needs to go. What good is he going to serve? Everyone's saying that they need to sympathize with him and his medical conditions and how he gouged his eyes out. He chose to do that. Nobody told him to. He only acted up when he was in trouble. Look at the history. It was never a situation where he didn't get in trouble first and then say, oh, I'm going to kill myself. No, it was always a situation where he had gotten into some kind of trouble and he decided to go to the extreme. Every single time he did hurt himself, he knew he wasn't doing any damage. He gave himself flesh wounds. Every single time he was alive for it. Every single time it was just something that he knew wasn't going to be serious. And I feel like there's a difference between crying out for attention and a cry for help. And for me, it was just like, hey, give me some attention. Do I believe that he had medical problems or that he had mental issues? Absolutely. But I do believe that some of the things that he did, the mental health issues, was a cover. And at the end of the day, the very Bible that he uses to quote and the verses that God gave that, that he tried to justify his actions with is the very same thing that he's going to have to explain to God that day that he meets him, which should have been a long time ago. I'm just saying. But I digress. That is all for this week's episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. You can follow the show on the various streams on Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. That's a number one, by the way, not spelled out. And you can leave a review there. On Twitter, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. On Facebook, you can join the private discussion group, the Infamous Ones discussion group. But please be advised, if you don't answer the questions, you ain't getting in. Okay? That's simple. But once you get in, let's chop it up. Because we talk about the real in there and, everybody has fun. Plus, I do giveaways and stuff when I'm feeling nice. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so on and so on. So please leave a review. It only takes a few seconds. These reviews matter, y'all. And speaking of, let's get to a couple of them. The first one comes from Spotify from Dina K. Smith. It was on the Kaylin Walker episode, and it says, your storytelling skills are the bestest. Thanks for telling your truth and being so transparent. You keep me engaged. Keep doing great work. Oh, thank you, boo. I love what I do, and I ain't stopping no time soon. Y'all keep rocking, and I'm going to keep rolling. Okay. The next one comes from Apple Podcast, and it is from DJ's Nana One. I love that. It says 5 stars. Keep on pushing. Good morning. I have finally taken the time to write a review. Yes, I love your podcast. I love the way you tell the stories. I feel like I'm sort of with my friends and we're catching one another up on what's going on. Keep on pushing. Well, hey, friend. Thank you for listening. How your people be? I appreciate the love, boo. Appreciate it. If you want to support the show or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning that liquor we've been sipping on, go ahead and click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on and hit listener support to subscribe. Starts at like 99 cents and gives you access to a lot of things, okay? You can also donate via the Cash App to $Infamous One Pod. That's $INFAMOUSONEPOD. Donations go toward documents, research, phone calls, all of that. And as always, shout out to my popcorn donators and shout out to, the people who be sending me red hots in my P.O. box. If you have a case that you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire about ad space, or if you want to leave a review, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's infamousonepod@gmail.com. As a reminder, the tickets for the Infamous Ones live meet and greet show ends May 31st. Tickets are on sale now and they are 50% off now. So make sure you get your tickets because it is going to be a whole vibe. Tickets sales end May 31st. The show itself is June 14th, 2025 at the Margaritaville located at 155 Olympic Park Drive. So you will not be able to purchase tickets the day of. You will not be able to purchase tickets past May 31st. Okay. I am so excited to meet you all and share this case with you. Now, I do want to touch on the live show meet and greet real quick. So the show was supposed to have two guests from other podcasts, Melanin Mysteries and Melanin Mayhem. Now, I know I made this announcement on Facebook Live in the discussion group, but for those of you that are not in the discussion group, I want to make the announcement here as well. It's a little saddening, but if you all recall, been hyping up hashtag BTCC, the Black True Crime Collective. And, I've been talking about it on all the social media platforms and, everything and talking about it for the show and how, Melanin Mysteries was coming to Atlanta for the show and how I was going up there for their anniversary in July. Unfortunately, a situation occurred recently, and although I have my thoughts and opinions on, aspects of it, I will say that I can take accountability and ownership for the parts that I played in it. And because of the parts that I played, I am not a part of BTCC anymore. So Melanin Mysteries will not be in attendance for the live show. Of course, I always will keep the invitation extended. Would love for them to be there. But, like I said, there was a situation that occurred with BTCC when it first started, before it was even announced to you guys. And there was an issue where I was having problems with someone, and, my frustration kind of got the better of me. My emotions got the better of me, and I quit. And so I had reached out to one of the spearheads and was just like, "Listen, I can't do this. I don't want to be a part of it." Like I was all over the place, basket case, whatever you want to call it. And like, of course, literally the very next day, I had changed my mind. I had calmed down and, I was like, "All right, I'm good." But I guess I had kind of already put that stain there from quitting. And then, just recently within the last week, there were some issues that occurred. And, I expressed how I felt, they expressed how they felt, and ultimately, because my emotions were high, I guess, again, I felt upset that, I was just like, "I can't do this." And in hindsight, like I said, I probably could have just recorded the episode with that person. I was just really upset and I felt like I can't give the best version of me for this episode. And I was like, fuck it, because I was frustrated with a lot of stuff. But, at the end of the day, I could have just recorded and, at the end of the day, it all sparked from, just goofy shit, and it just, like I said, it kind of sent me over the edge because I had had some issues prior with this person and, felt like there was a breakdown in communication and I wasn't able, to express myself. Those were just my feelings, like I said. But, um, like I said, I made the executive decision to just, was like, oh, I don't want to do this. But it kinda everything just kinda spiraled, and like I said, unfortunately, now I'm no longer affiliated with BTCC. It wasn't something that honestly, it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. It was more so my words and my actions at the time during a period of high emotion. And, like I said, I have my opinions on it, but, you know, this is where I am with it now, and this is where they are with it now. And, like I said, I still support each and every last one of them. I got to know them, and they each bring their own unique groove to the show. or to the group, excuse me, I still support and, ask that, there's no negativity or anything like that because there's definitely no ill or negativity here. Melanin Mysteries, Melanin Mayhem, Sip of Red Rum, Not My Brother's Keeper. They're all wonderful podcasts. And of course, I hope and wish them to do the best and, to be the best. And I would hope that, they wish the same for myself and my platform. And I'm not quitting podcasting or anything like that, so don't get that in your head. Like, y'all not getting rid of me, you know? But I just know that it was something that I was really excited about. And unfortunately, things worked out the way that they did. I'll just say that, So to those that saw the live, y'all saw that I was crying a lot because one thing that I really hated was I felt like the friendship that I had with a person ended. And, who knows? It may be a thing where we find our way back to each other, at some point later on down the line. I don't know. So while you may not hear me mention BTCC anymore as to my involvement, I do still wish them love and, will always support. Love you guys. So back on track, y'all. Sorry about that because I'm not about to cry again. Nope. Um, I appreciate it, people. Please share the podcast. The podcast is growing by the day and it means the world. So please keep sharing. Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl, Kay. Thank you for tuning in on this Mother's Day. And I will see y'all in just a few minutes with an extra episode, y'all. So stay mobbing, okay? Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.